How are you? Do a vibe check. How are you feeling? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I woke up a bit sick today, but start dealing a bit with music, and then you get into the groove. I have three songs in the pipe, three songs being cooked, and working on them on few arrangements. So once you start, and then your mind goes. One is pretty much the arrangements is ready, but the others, like I'm working on them, working in my mind, so I'm going back and forth with the guitar, trying different instruments, trying different tunes, and trying to figure out which direction I go. So, but I think like, and then sickness just disappears.
Ah, it's bloody true, isn't it? I've I literally made the switch to Pro Tools this weekend,
Yeah.
um,
How
and
is it? How is it with Pro Tools? Are you enjoying?
yeah, loving it, loving it. It's just it's the fear of the unknown, isn't it? It's like I'm a classically trained piano player,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I can notice
and
that, which is amazing.
but I came over to America to play in a rock band, and so a rock band means yes, I'm playing piano, but you're playing keys and you're learning how to play a slide, a Hammond style and sliding, and it's a whole different thing. But then band members expect you as a keyboard player to be able to program the keyboard. I fucking have no fucking clue. I once sat down, my brother back in the day bought me you remember the Yamaha DX7?
Yeah, yeah.
I had a Yamaha DX7 and he bought me a book and it started with how to fucking program the wave, the sine wave, and then the fucking square wave, the wave, and then how to build the out. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. I just want to play. So, to the point being, there's such a technical barrier as a musician that if you want to be that musician in your home studio, there's that level you have to get through. And Pro Tools looks so complex, but if you've got a good teacher that just like teaches you the channel strip, the idea of a channel strip and the audio flow is water, and you're just directing it here and there, and it's like,
Yeah.
I get that. So I have a shitload to learn about reverb and delay and fucking oscillation bullshit, but you know
Yeah.
what? It's getting there. What's your
Yeah.
technical setup?
Say again.
What's your technical setup? What's your door? I
Yeah,
mean,
so just one comment to you, like any keyboard player is expected in a band to be the IT guy.
that's not me.
Yeah. So I mean, wherever you go, if you're the keyboard player, they're gonna look to you. You are the IT guy, right? So you know how to deal with IT, and that's it.
It's not me. And I have engineers that set up my doors, and now I'm having to learn. But yeah, yeah, no.
No, but I tell you, so I used to have complex setups, right? So I'm dealing with studio or home studio recording for, I would say, around 20 years more or less, right? So I started that quite a long time ago, and I had my first Mac with five-wire sound devices, and I managed to record. And I used to have Pro Tools, so when Pro Tools was the kind of a single license, so that was my base, right? So I learned pretty much everything that I knew, like based on Pro Tools. And then I moved back to Brazil in 2012, and I had a shit loads of gear, right? I had a keyboard. I had the wrong the which keyboard I had. I had this controller keyboard, and I had so many things, and etc. And Brazil equipment is very expensive because taxation is very expensive, right? So what I did is like this: when I moved back to Europe in 2015, I just decided, okay, let me sell everything. I just got rid of everything. So I reached Munich, and then I said, okay, I want to buy just what I need. I don't want to go over. I don't want to go crazy, anything like that. So I got this sound card. What was the name of that? This red one that is excellent. I forgot the name of it. It was $100, something like that, $120. So I did a lot of things with that one. And then I started thinking, okay, what else I need? Okay, I need to invest in microphones. So basically, I built from the scratch, and I really hold myself in not going mad with equipment, right? So basically, my setup here is like this. the computer that we're talking is pretty much the heart of my studio, right? So that's a Mac Studio that I recently upgraded. Then I use a IO Station 24C as a sound card, which is a PreSonus one. So it's a controller, so I can, whenever I'm doing the things, I can control there as well. So my baseline, I mean, Pro Tools is excellent. I love Pro Tools, but there were two problems with Pro Tools. First one, it was too heavy. I need every time a big computer, and I could see that it's a node software being further developed. And I mean, I'm a software guy, right? At the end of the day, I'm still a software engineer, so I understand how this kind of things work. So I decided to read, and I found Reaper. And when I started reading about Reaper, I got like crazy about it. I said, let me try it out. And I can't get rid of Reaper anymore. So Reaper is my baseline, and I do everything that I can in Reaper. And I can tell you, man, even the first co-videos, like this video collaboration that I did everything in Reaper. All the video edits in Reaper.
Tell me a little bit more about Reaper. What is it?
So, yeah, maybe I'm convinced you to change to Reaper by the end of this.
Okay. I can
No, but
bring
I
it.
mean, I'm going to save you some bucks. How much you're paying for Pro Tools per month? $40?
Yeah, give or take.
So I was thinking about that. Come on, I'm doing kind of a living of music, but $40 at the end of the year is $500 almost, right? So and then that builds up. Reaper, I pay. It's four engineers that develop that in the US. They release a new license, a new version of the software every second week, and it just works perfect. It's extremely light. My old Mac was an iMac 2012, and it worked like a charm. So it really works. So Reaper is kind of the alternative version for recording. So it's a very stable one, and that so I got very much used to that. And the amount of educational material that you find online is simply amazing. So, for example, you were just telling me that you want to listen reverb, right? How to do with reverb. So there's a guy called David Gioia, Dave Gioia. So David is the one recording. So he's a musician, a professional musician. I have even bought a course from him because the guy deserves. So I just put David Gioia doing reverb. What? And then he comes and he shows everything. A 5 minutes, 10 minutes video. You are up to speed. You go forward, and that's it. So the material is very good. There's a crazy amount of resources around. And here in Munich, for example, all the people that collaborate with me, they're all in Reaper. I mean, it was cost efficient, very stable, and I can tell you, I was a Pro Tools user. As I told you, Pro Tools is fantastic. It's the industry standard. But Reaper, I mean, I'm very fascinated about it, right? So that's the heart of the software that I use. So I have a couple of plugins that I use for reverb, for compressor, for equalizer, and all this kind of things for mastering as well. But I have this good room here, right? So that's also another thing. So I have worked in the acoustics of this room, so I have studied a bit the basics of acoustics. So not isolation, but to improve the quality of the sound of that, because the classical guitar is a complicated animal. And I wanted to get a sound from certain reference recordings that I had. And I worked quite a lot on that to get the sound at the level that I want. And another thing, like I want to buy the Neumann microphone, but the Neumann microphone costs five fucking thousand euros, right? But I don't have room for that. So I started experiencing different type of microphones. So I ended up with a pair of Rhodes that I have here. So I use this one that is here. Where is my microphone? No, it's not here. But I use one Rode that is ZNT5 that I use in my guitar, and I use a DPA for 4099. So I always record my guitar stereo with two different microphones in different positions because I'm recording nylon guitar.
No.
And then I have the vocals like with this one that's also a Rode, and I'm very happy with that, right? So I know the sound of it, and I know what to do. And for me, what's also important is like this: I have a good pair of Audio Technica headphones, so that's pretty much my base for mixing. And I have my lovely Genelec speakers that you can see that are just behind here.
I think what we could do on this, it would be really interesting to take your gear setup, and we can just have a list at the bottom of what's the
Yep.
door, studio monitors, cans, mics, whatever. I think that would be, again, for musicians who are interested in getting your sound
Absolutely, yeah.
to
But
check that.
I think the message that I want to say, like, is one thing that took me a while to understand. And I mean, there's a tendency, and I have friends that do that. You just go crazy and start buying stuff, and you just spend loads of money on that, and don't use what you have. You don't learn, like, uh, I mean, you just go crazy, and you buy, for example, all these 5,000 euros microphones, but you don't even know how to use it. So for me, it's always like this: what do I need more? What's missing here that I need more? And what I needed actually was a very cheap thing. I needed to spend time studying acoustics. That's how I got the quality of this room in the way that I wanted to have.
There are the two things that reminds me that immediately come to mind. There's there's my sister is super bright and she studied out in Russia and she speaks fluent Russian, lots of different languages.
Oh,
Her first pro gig as a translator was translating Russian software manuals into English, and they were called the Red Guide to COBOL or the Red Guide to
yeah,
whatever. And the reason people loved the Russian approach to programming was they didn't have access to the heavy hardware, the high-end chips of the Western world. So they were really good at extracting the maximum, that you could get from code without having to rely on, processing. And I think the analogy for that is when you look at hobbyists, rich hobbyists, they've got fucking racks of guitars and they've got all of this kind of stuff. But when you look at people who are doing it for real, you're right, there's a lot less gear, but they learn how to get the most out of their gear because they're working with it all the time. And I think
yeah,
I can always tell when you go into somebody's house or you see somebody's room, the amount of gear they've got. Basically, the more gear they have, the less professional they are. I don't know.
yeah. The problem they are shallow, right? I think that would be the word that I would use. Like, I mean, and I think the guitar, at least guitar, teaches me every day one thing: that to keep myself humble, right? Because if I spend 1 week without practicing guitar, it's 1 month to get my hands back. So I'm practicing now one song, one Brazilian jazz song. It is a difficult piece, right? But it's not the most difficult piece. But I haven't been playing this song for a little while, so I'm not yet ready to record. So I need to really give it time. So guitar teaches me that every day is a starting day, right? I need to restart again. If I'm practicing constantly, my ramp up period is much faster. But guitar pushes me to keep humble, right? And that's an amazing thing that, at least in music, I find it very important.
100%. Okay, let's hold for a sec because you have frozen on your end.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Let's just make sure that's not
Let me install my camera and then I.
okay. And yeah, we're back. All right, cool.
Yeah. All right.
No, dude, but that's the difference as well. I mean, I built music to distribute my music and then spent the
Yeah.
time like not doing my music. So now I'm back playing again and I'm working. So I'm fanatical, not fanatical, but I love the idea of prime beats per minute. There's something
Yeah.
powerful to me about operating at 83 or 79 or 97 or 113 or 127 because in my weird head, I think there is something cool about operating at a BPM that cannot be divided by it's not derivative, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I play myself back in, I start at 61 beats per minute and I do one octave of C major and then two octaves of C major and then three
Yeah.
octaves of C major and then four octaves of C major and then I do a C minor and then I'll do it in C sharp major, C sharp minor, and then you go up the piano. I start at 61 beats per minute and then I go to 63 beats per minute, and then and by the time there's a jump, and I think from 83 into the 90s, where you suddenly feel it, but then you're in. And right now, I haven't started that process. I'm just back playing, and I'm playing in 83 BPM, and I'm trying to swing my left hand on the,
Yeah.
and it's just like, shit, it's not quite there, and I'm falling off with
Yeah.
the right hand. It's like, oh fuck, muscle memory is everything, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, it takes a while to get back. Piano is the same story, right? So I mean, you need to really get into like practicing like horns, for example. I started playing the clarinet just more as a hobby, right? Just to learn something completely different. And I spend, of course, I'm not a clarinetist, so but I can see that it's a different type of exercise that you need to do there
Yeah.
compared to piano, guitars, and things like that.
So tell me about the reference sounds for your guitar. So what were the reference sounds that you went with?
Yeah, so Brazilian music. I mean, I think there are a few countries in the world where the nylon guitar has been the heart of everything, right? I think Spain is where everything started, right? So let's not go there. Like I spent many years in love with flamenco. I still in love with flamenco, and I have my frustration because I focus in something else. But I was born and raised in Brazil, and I grew up listening that. And so I think the heart of everything here started pretty much with the nylon strings guitar. The popular music. I have a classical guitar education, right? But my grandfather, he was playing popular songs in a guitar there, and that's the sound that I have. And of course, the most common and very well known is bossa nova. So that classical sound of João Gilberto, for example, that everybody knows, like the guitar that's a very, it's not soft, right? But it's like it's a round sound of the guitar and all this kind of thing. So the Brazilian guitar has a specific sound because it's usually playing the nylon. I mean, there are several variations, right? I mean, I'm just oversimplifying it, but so there's some reference recording, for example, from Marco Pereira, which is a very famous and one of the most important guitar players. So that for me is like completely amazing, and that's the type of sound that I want to get. Is like to translate the classical guitar sound into popular music, right? Or non-classical, let's put it this way, like non-formal classical, but that sound of the classical guitar into the non-classical environment, into jazz, for example. So for me, that has been a very important thing, how to get that sound getting out. And this is not an easy task to record it. I mean, when you play and when you take the sound, because most of my guitars are nylon, and when I'm playing, like my working guitar is all nylon, and that's the sound that I want to get. Is the classical guitar sound that is pretty well known, but into the jazz, into the popular songs that I'm playing. So that's the reference that I have. That's from one hand. From another one is the percussion part. So the Brazilian percussion from samba and etc. is very present, right? So famous guitar players, for example, Baden Powell, um, he translated a samba school into his fingers. So certain sounds, the grooves that he used, the rhythm that he's playing in the right hand, um, if you're left hand, and funny enough, I'm left hand, but I play in the right hand side of the guitar. So, but he translates certain instruments from the samba school to that, right? So, and that's what I try to do. So this combination of the rhythm and the chords, because we play very jazzy chords, right? And that's how this is the reference I have. So for me, percussion, especially Afro-Brazilian percussion, samba percussion, for me that's very important. So I need that. This is the combination of sound that I'm always using, trying to seek.
And literally, what are you doing? You have them on vinyl and you've got a record player and you're playing the original in the room and then you're trying to match, or are you using tech, or how did you get there?
Yeah. So there are certain records that I consider the basics, right, of my school of music is choro, right? So that's like, I mean, as people like, they study classical guitar, people study flamenco, people study like my school of music the way. So I was raised and born in choro, and choro is the Brazilian jazz, right? So choro is the mix of European music from the 18th century or before with the African rhythms, right? So that's how that's the school that I choose for me, and that's where so I listen lots of things from different type of people. Uh, and what got interest like in Brazil because of so in the mid of 80s or in the 18th century, there's an influence of the Russian guitar in Europe, like with the 7-string guitar.
Yeah.
So this guitar reached Brazil. So, and then suddenly you have the traditional 6 strings guitar. Someone made an adjustment in that guitar and put another string there. And people are just playing kind of the bass, like tum, 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 tum. And then one guy came up with bass lines that were completely amazing, right? And that scares everybody else. And this guy was called Gino Sete Cordas, so 7 strings Gino. So that was the name of this guy. And what he did, he took one famous Brazilian they call Pixinguinha, black guy that came to Europe, like the guy is like really a jazz guy, and he's the kind of god for all of Brazilians that are really interested in this type of music, and translated all the saxophone bass lines into the guitar. So this is what I heard when I was a kid. So then you get the 7 strings guitar, and then you make bass lines into that, and so it's kind of a counterpoint from the melody. So for example, you're playing the piano there, and every interval of your melody, I'm making some bass line to complement and to value your melody. So that's the kind of the concept of the 7 strings guitar. So the way that I studied, because there was no books written about that, right? The classical, of course, I studied and all these kind of things, but it was listening, transcribing, and understanding the harmony and all these kind of things. So I remember there was an old man that he was a painter. So he used to paint my mom's house in Brazil. So he was a 7 strings guitar. And then he came to me and said, "Hey, Abdallah, you know what? Because I want to play like you, so I don't want to study music anymore. I want to play only by ear and all these kind of things because you all play by ear." And he told me, "Yeah, it took me 50 years to play what I play today, but if you study music, you're gonna do it much faster." So, and here we go, right? So that's how I got into that. So it was lots of practicing and listening these kind of things, and lots of creation as well. So very often I'm listening songs and I'm paying attention not on the guitar but in the other stuff. What's going on in that song? So for example, the congas, that you can even make an analogy with the Cuban music, right? So what they are doing there, and how can I translate that into the guitar?
Gotcha.
So this is an exercise that I do very often, right? And I try to combine with complex harmony. So I try to get the Joe Pass style of guitar and put into the Brazilian grooves as well. And that combination is awesome, right? So I can spend hours finding harmony lines into basic songs and trying to do in one way, and then I try to do it another way, and then I try to do in a different way. And that's a very much something that you learn from João Gilberto. So there's this, I don't know if that's true or not, but people used to say that the cat of João Gilberto just jumped out of the balcony because he was playing Chega de Saudade. I don't know how many times, and the cat got crazy and just jumped because the guy, every time that he plays something so perfect in sync with the harmony, because he has tried all the possibilities, that was simply amazing, right? So, sorry, I gave you a long answer.
No. It's perfect. So, but it's just reflecting on that as a piano player. The first thing you learn as a piano player when you go into a band is that you have to stop being a piano player because the piano player is the whole orchestra. We play everything. I was
Yep.
trained as an accompanist. So while I learned piano from the age of 3, I was going to give up. And then again, my brother introduced me to my new teacher and he taught me how to accompany singers. And I think that was like fucking life changing for me completely because instead of being the star, it puts you into that not star making role, but you create the platform for other people to shine. And that has pretty much shaped my entire life. And I love it. Um, and I learned very early on, because what gets me about piano players, when I listen to a lot of solo piano music, all the space. It's like, hey, look at my really busy right hand, and look at my busy left hand, and I can feel the whole thing. And it's like, for me, I much prefer, room to breathe. And
Yeah.
certainly, if I'm working with the kind of music that I write, there's a lot of space in it. If I'm working with a singer, it's creating a lot of space for that singer to sit. I'm not the star, but we create the star together. But listening to how when you're approaching like the seven string guitar and you're playing the bass and you're bringing this in, the guitar, the way you're playing the guitar is almost sounds like a piano because you are these next three tracks that you've got. Are you going to work with other artists or is the guitar going to be front and center?
Yeah, so there's one song. The guitar is in the center, so it's just a guitar and a tambourine. So that's the duo that I have, right? So I usually have the both, and of course, guitar is in the center, but the pandeiro is tambourine in Portuguese. Um, Complements very well, and we make a dialogue between two of them. So, but yeah, but the guitar comes a bit more because of the melody, right? And puts in the center. In this track, for example, this Preparo Arame that we discussed, so the guitar is is creating the harmony in the background. And there are lots of grooves in the guitar that I'm making that are very different, but to let the singer and the percussion to shine. And this for me was very important to find paths on that. So usually when I'm creating, I think I have moments where I want to do songs where the guitar is like doing what you just said about the piano, filling all the spaces. Like I have two or three. I just released one in August. That's called Tuas Mãos. That's only guitar, very, very relaxing, and etc. Where the guitar is center, right? While the other is like, I mean, it's part of the ensemble. So we are playing all together, and this needs to sound uh, collaborative. It needs to sound like unique. It's not like one highlight. Even the solo needs to make one form.
We're gonna get deeper into that, but let's moving into
Yeah.
para rame.
Prepara o arame. So just for you to understand, prepara o
Rame.
arame. Prepara means to prepare. Arame is wire, right?
Yep.
And the wire of the berimbau, this African instrument, so that get ready with your berimbau. That's the translation of that.
I did get the lyrics translated before I came in. So,
Smart
so
man.
Edson Show. How did you find him? How do you know him? How did you come across that video? I mean, talk about that track first.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, I'm very much involved with capoeira, right? So I have practiced capoeira for um, almost 40 years. I'm not doing that anymore, like getting older, bad knee here, so I can't jump too much, and
Well,
so I need to jump.
let's just take one thing. So, for most people who probably won't have, not most people, let's rephrase that.
Yeah.
What is capoeira?
So capoeira is a Brazilian martial art, right? So it's capoeira is something that came to Brazil together with the slavery. So Brazil, we have the very embarrassing history that we were the last country in the world to get rid of slavery, right? And that has influenced a lot the culture, including martial arts and all this kind of thing. So capoeira is something that came from Africa, was originally or initiated in Africa and got developed in Brazil. So it was a way that the slaves they fought against each other without showing to the police or to the white people that they were fighting. So people, they are dancing, but they were not. They were fighting. That's also another oversimplification of capoeira. And
Sure.
it's very interesting because it's played with several instruments, right? And I think that comes with the music. So the first instrument that rules the capoeira is called berimbau, which is a piece of wood with a wire and a small kind of coconut that's called cabaça. And then you make just basically two sounds, and it's very percussive. The second instrument is pandeiro, which is the tambourine. So you translate as a tambourine with letter and etc. And then you have the atabaque, which you could translate as a conga. And then I have a few other percussion stuff. So, and this is like the setup. So there's lots of singing, lots of playing, and people are kind of fighting or dancing with this environment, this musical environment. So that would be like short explanation of capoeira.
You grew up doing capoeira?
Yeah, I grew up doing that, so I was very interested on that. Like the time that I started doing capoeira, capoeira was only for marginal people, so unwanted and unliked people, people that were like segregated from the society. But I always like that, right? That is very African, and that I carry very strong inside me. So I grew up with that as well.
Okay, so now we understand what capoeira is. How does the
So
instrument
yeah,
work?
so when I moved to Munich, I got together with the capoeira people here. So there are many groups today. You find groups everywhere in the world, and the lady that is the master of this group, so she's really a master, a capoeira master. So we became very close friends, right? So she's the one singing actually the song. So Jana Crivelli, yeah. So Jana, so we are always talking about music and we are always exchange. Oh, have you listened to that? Have you listened to this? And then one day she came to me and said, Abdallah, have you heard about Preparo Arame from Edson Show? I said, I never heard about this guy. No, this guy he was not a master. He was just a person who loved capoeira, and he recorded a song in YouTube. So he's singing in a very cheerful way, I would say, and with a very interesting guitar on his side, like doing a groove that apparently is very simple, but it's not, right? And there's a guy with the tambourine playing together, so they're just doing that. And that song is beautiful, right? Tells a lot about capoeira. I mean, you translated the song, so we can share that afterwards, so people can understand and say, "Well, that's very beautiful," but that's an old recording. Nobody ever recorded that song. And she told me, we need to do that song. We need to do that song. That's fine. So then what happens like this? I started introducing more and more the guitar into the capoeira. Usually it's only percussion. So there were people that did that before. So I'm not the first one, absolutely not the first one. But I started getting the percussion instruments in tune, which helps a lot my ears. So I need to get things on tune. And then we start trying and experimenting how to make that song with the guitar and etc. So I did that a couple of times. It was very spontaneous, where people were just singing out of tune and in tune and with the atabaki, like when it started and etc. And then I started creating a form. And then in my mind, I said, okay, if I would happen to record that song, what would be the arrangement that I would like to do? How I would picture that that song when it's ready, right? It's like I want to build a house, so I go and I see a terrain. That's and then I looked at terrain, and then I said, okay, nothing is there, but I can visualize how this house would look like. So then I started listening more and more. But I mean, the reference for me was just a guy singing, and that was very far away from where I wanted to go with that. Because then I started singing the people here, including Brazilians and non-Brazilians, singing that song and getting. And I could see every time that you add an additional element that can be a percussion, can be a change of groove in the guitar, and etc. I could see the excitement of the audience. I could see someone smiling and someone just looking to me, wow. And this is the kind of thing that I really love to do, is to pay attention to the audience, because sometimes I think that I'm doing something interesting, but the audience, they don't give a shit. Sometimes I do things that I don't expect to be interesting, and then suddenly someone say, "Oh wow, that's amazing," right? So that's how this guy Edson Show showed up, and this guy died, I don't know how many years ago, because that recording from YouTube is from the 80s, right? And I think it was like, so it was like completely spontaneous. That showed up like that.
So what do you think is happening when you're adding, new aspects to the song and you're seeing people's eyes light up? What do you think's happening?
Yeah. So when I'm building and I'm starting the arrangement and all this kind of things, when I'm starting the whole production, the way that I see that's like this. I see a 4 to 6 minutes universe. And within this universe, my job as a producer, as a musician, and as a person who is getting that together, is to get someone to get entertained during this 4 to 6 minutes. So it's a journey. I'm taking someone to a journey, and my goal is to make that as interesting as possible. I want to take this person and create things that this person would do. Wow, oh, cry or not cry, or smile, feel cheerful, feel sad. It doesn't matter. But I want an experience to happen within this world. So when I'm adding instruments, adding different components and all these kind of things, what I'm searching for is like this. I want to create different environments. I want to create different scenes. So in this specific case of Preparo o Arame, it starts only with claps and with voice, with the vocals. And then suddenly two other percussion instruments are added. And then just a very gentle guitar goes in to give a little bit of harmony, right? So not to leave around. But that before the second scene starts, there's already a second guitar coming in and doing lots of interesting and reverse grooves to create more scenes behind that. So the song asks that now it's time for the drum to make a solo, right? So it says like in the lyrics say like that. And we explore that part extensively. Instead of just singing, yeah, now it's time for the conga to make a solo. No, let's do it differently. Let's make it interesting, right? So we said, okay, first is like, let's make the conga, conga, your turn to make a solo. So we make a solo on that. But then you do the solo, and then what happens? I want to change. I want to include some specific pace of the Brazilian music that's a 6/8, which is more towards candomblé, which is is the Afro part of the African religion in Brazil influence. So the Brazilian traditional songs is always in 2/4. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and the second beat is always the strongest beat, right? But then, I mean, what I want to do, like in this 1, 2, is to add then a 6/8 and be the ta 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 ta, and that creates a completely different type of groove. And I play a lot with that. I like to play with all this kind of things. So for me, that's like I do sometimes in the guitar, the percussion, all these kind of things.
It's when I'm developing a theme in 83, um, so I'll sit there and I'll put the click track on, and I'll just put the click track on in, just straight 1/4. So it's just like there's no accent beats, just boom, 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 and then I'll sit on it and I'll play. Then I'll put it in classic 4/4 time, so I've got an accent on the four, and I'll play and see a theme, and then I'll move it to 6/8, and then I'll play that theme. And there are just different themes that are riffing off 1 BPM, but just by changing the time signature, just changes whatever melody or whatever thematic element comes in based on the music. But going back to just in terms of you as a producer, there's that balance between having too much going on and distracting, but having more information that feels fucking great. And I think one of the things that caught my ear with this track is that there is so much going on, but it feels so fucking right. It's like you know what I mean? You can hear a track, and it's like, just pare some stuff down, let me hear what it is. But here, the more that it comes in, the more I want to grin because the more it feels right and good.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point because less is more, right? And it takes a while for all of us to understand that. And I think thanks to the digital world, life become much easier to play with this kind of thing. So in this recording, for example, there are several lines of percussion and guitars, right? And one thing that I have done in purpose is to record the full song with each one of the instruments, right? And then what I did afterwards is like, let me remove. So that's a habit that I usually do. So it's the whole like orchestra starting and then, okay, so there's no emotions because you just started everything there. But we are in the art business, right? We know that we need to create expectation and need to create something new, the surprise and all this kind of thing. So you need to think where and the right moment to put it. So it cannot be too much, cannot be too few. And then, so I play quite a lot of that. And that thanks to the digital world, right? That helps me a lot to play with that.
I love that. It's have I my most popular track is a track called Frustration on YouTube. I have another popular track on Spotify.
Yeah.
And it is just this heart-rending thing. And it's written so there's a piano in flow, and then I immediately cut one string track on top of it, and then I cut the second string track on. And the editing was just removing what didn't work. And then so then you have this thing that just stands. But you're right, I played the whole thing. And the thing that always cracks me up, and may we, please, compare ourselves to Michelangelo. But the story was when somebody said to Michelangelo and they saw David, and like, well, how did you sculpt this? It is magnificent. And he just turns around and says, apparently, well, I just removed what wasn't David.
But that's exactly the point, right? Is I think you need to, and one of the things, like especially, I'm going a bit up and down here, but in the mixing part, the one technique that I use is like this: when I'm mixing, I'm not pumping up volumes, I'm taking out stuff.
Yeah.
Always thinking other, and I want to. I play a lot with left and right panning and volume. I extensively play with that, and once I cannot, when I reach the point I can do more with just panning and left and right, then I start working with the other stuff. But for me, that's basics and removing, always taking out, always taking out.
I mean, yeah, I mean, just a bit that will cut out. What I'm loving with the flow of this is we will not present this chronologically how we've discussed it. So we're going to
Yeah,
pull technical bits, which is fucking great. I
yeah.
love it. But going back to a technical aspect, um, so you're for this track, everything was recorded analog, yeah? Everything was recorded through a microphone.
Absolutely. That's my mantra. Everything that you're gonna hear from Abdallah Harati, everything is truly recorded.
So because I am using a Vienna Imperial piano, an amazing sample, which I've literally just got my hands on. And I will be, I'm always tracking to the click. And yet you get into the edit screen and you've got the lovely quantizing tool. And are you quantizing down to, are you basically shifting the human imperceptions to a more, predictable, timing? So, and I think it defaults to 1/16th, and I'm going for 1/32 because that brings in more of the human stuff. But that's not available to you, is it?
No,
Yeah.
no, that's not available. Like, of course, in Reaper, for example, there are ways that I can correct few mistakes, and mistakes they happen. But the lack of accuracy, and when I mean the lack of accuracy, I don't mean in a way that disturbs the ear, right? I don't mean mistakes. But the lack of accuracy, like when you record clapping, for example, if everybody claps precisely at the same time, you're gonna hear just a very boring sound. So you need to get a natural reverb because someone is clapping 1 millisecond ahead of the other person and things like that. So that's what makes for me human very organic.
I want to go down this rabbit hole a bit.
Yeah.
Um, why do you think that sounds better?
Let me rephrase that. I don't think it sounds better, but it's probably the style that I love to push forward, right? I think it sounds more human because I mean when I'm playing live with people, sometimes we change the rhythm in the middle of the song on purpose, and this transition doesn't happen on the spot. You start and someone just and this small transition that everything is out of shape and then suddenly becomes on time again. I think that's very interesting, right? I think that's beautiful. So, and humans, I mean, when we are playing together, there are some milliseconds delays and that happen naturally. And I love to capture that when I'm doing recording. So this perfect song that there's no mistakes when I'm playing guitar. Like, I mean, there are always that sometimes one finger gets a bit stuck and all these things. I think this gives the human aspect of the song. So I wouldn't say that sounds better. I think it's more like the style that I like to use. And the way that I brand this style is become more human.
I have a lot of thoughts on this, please. So, have you played with any of the AI music generators?
Yeah, I have done a bit. I have done a bit with that.
What's been your impression?
I think it's interesting, right? I think it's interesting. I need to play a little bit more on that. Um, but I think the soul part, that's the part that I need still to work on. Because I mean, I see music as a dialogue, right? It's a conversation. The good thing, let me make a very bold statement here. We musicians, we don't need therapy, right? Because we can play this stuff, we put our emotions out. Nobody knows what's going on, but we know. Right? So music, like I communicate with you, and even if it's via playlist, right? And you tell me something, I tell you, we don't directly communicate, but we are communicating, and we are telling a lot about ourselves. And when I'm doing that with AI, I I can't hold myself what I feel that I'm doing that with a machine.
I So I see the AI coming in, and it's sophomoric at the moment, and it's going to get better and better. So I mean, there are plenty of like TikTok videos or YouTube videos of somebody saying, "Hey, right, AI, play me a country song about bananas in Texas, and give me a female singer," and it will churn out a song that maybe 40 years ago, might have been acceptable, but it's nonsensical, it's soulless. But I believe it will get better. Even from my limited technology know-how, we were literally talking about quantizing earlier. There are programmers, or what I call producers, programmers, who are programming the keyboards. They're like clicking away, putting their melody in, putting in the arpeggiator, and then they're quantizing it out to bring in some human, you variability. And so they're producing tracks that is purely, the sum of math coming
Yeah.
out of, a machine. And do you think at some point that is going to be indistinguishable from human analog produced?
I mean, as you know, like I work with technology. I'm deeply involved in technology. Probably that's why with music I try to be as organic as possible to balance my crazy life with technology and all these kind of things. Um, I believe that there is space for that. Right? Let me answer in a different way. I believe that there is space for this type of things. I think there's need of environmental music and things like that. That this would fit perfectly into that, and will fill a void that's existing today. Um, I believe that an algorithm that the machine learning, it gets better eventually. It absolutely gets better. But I think that, and it gets quite impressive, right? And I mean, I think there'll be songs. I mean, let me give you an example. Uh, I have a persona in Spotify and etc. That's not related to my name, right? It's called Tupi Wurst, right? Tupi is the original language from Brazil, and Wurst is sausage in German. As I live in Munich, I just create Tupi Wurst. All the drawings there are made by my daughter. So I release songs with the Tupi Wurst name, right? When I do Tupi Wurst, why I wanted to do that? Because I want to do sampling. So I started creating. I don't play any instrument. I just use sampling, bass lines, guitar, saxophone, drums, and etc. And I create song on that. So I have created songs that people told me, wow, I'm in love. Abdallah, is there a band? Where can I listen to this band live and all that kind of thing? So people really got connected to that, and I didn't play anything. So I believe with AI is taking what I just said to the next level and make it better. And the more that the algorithm learns, the better it will be. But there's one element that I don't think it can replace, and I will explain to you in this way. I mean, I think there are some recordings that we all love, that we listen, we get excited, and we get emotional about, and etc. And I think we both have seen these records live. I think we have seen the actual musician playing. And I think we both saw, and something happened inside us when we see someone transmitting the art in a song that we love, that we simply got crazy, and it cannot replace even by just studio recording. And these emotions, this communication that happens during a live concert, that someone is just going mad in the instrument, or someone is just singing with their heart, or something like that, I don't think that any machine would be able to do. Maybe I'm wrong, but just a humble opinion from my side.
Do you think that's proximity?
Now I think goes beyond that. I think it's spiritual. I would say, like, I think it goes into different type of avenues here. If I would name it, I think it's energetic. I think it's the energy level, is spiritual, is the connection that human beings they have. Like, it's the same like as we are talking here, right? We are behind two cameras, like how many 10,000 miles in distance, but still, like, there's lots of connection here that I think if you would do via offline recording, we will never get that interaction.
100%. I am fascinated by this. I'm loving that we're in this position. There are a couple of reference points. So the rise of the AI artists. So there are artists out there where their music is generated by prompt engineering. Two or three musicians are engineering the prompt, and the track is released. It is given to their graphics team, who are representing the visual artists. I mean, gorillas. I mean, it's that taken to the next level. And then, of
Yep.
course, the next level after that is the holographic artists that are coming out of Japan. So those holographic artists are generating live concerts, although it's predominantly teen driven. So I suspect the emotional human experience is more driven by proximity to other humans in the space, that's giving that hormonal boost to the experience of the music. So you've got that, and where that goes, I don't know, just hold that. But you've got the second thing, which is the the live music. The biggest growth that I am seeing in people going to live music performance is the growth of a DJ. And so, the DJ is creating a 90-minute set, a 1 hour or 2 hour set, where they're reading the crowd, but they've already got their crates and they're bringing in the thing, and they are blending tunes and blending the vibe to give the crowd that great time. And the crowd congregate and they feel good, they listen to tunes, they're dancing, they're vibing off everybody else, and that's the thing. But there's zero musician analog imperfection construct in that DJ set. And what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think there's an element that's quite important here. In all the examples that you just mentioned to me, there is a human aspect, including the prompting into AI, right? So whenever I use quite a lot of AI, even if you're prompting for drawings or art, whatever, there's someone that needs to prompt. And the basics of AI 101, the secret is the prompting. If you know how to prompt, I mean, you were there, right? And there's no machine that teach you how to prompt. You need to prompt yourself, at least so far, right? So the result of a DJ, the result of AI generated music and etc. There are three engineers, one guy doing the song and listening all of that. But the outcome, it is initiated by a human being. And the result is fantastic for a certain purpose. So the purpose you go to a party, a DJ party, is to get connected to someone that is putting a song for you to dance according to the vibe and the grooves and the way that the people are dancing and the whole scenario there. There's an outcome, and there's an expectation for that, for the art and all these kind of things, right? Is different if you compare to organic sounds and a live band, a blues band, like the traditional stuff. So, which is also initiated by humans, and then comes with the imperfection, etc. But what I believe is like this: everything has its space, and everything is valid, right? So, but by the end, what I'm questioning is like how much non-human music can be produced without someone behind that prompting, coding, and etc. Because coding is also an art.
For sure. For sure.
Sorry, I went around here, but
No. This is fucking perfect because it's bringing us back to, again, I believe. I mean, music is an incredible story, isn't it? I mean, for me, music is a story of technology. Music is a story of like banging rocks together, developing the technology to stretch a piece of fabric or skin over a wooden frame that needs tension to be able to sustain tension of the thing. So then you get a more resonant, drum through to strengthening wood technology. And now we have a piano frame, and now we have lutes, but lutes become violins because the woods, and
yeah,
then we have, recording, and then we have this. So it's, to me, music, how it moves through society is a story of technology. And yet there is what's so it's constantly changing, and the pace of change is accelerating. And I think, for me, it was Lenny Kravitz's, I think it's Five, wasn't it? In 1998. And that was like one of the first hit albums that was recorded on Pro Tools. And it
mm-hmm.
was game changing for everybody. And then the home studio came in. And when I look at the on-chain world, it's driven by EDM, it's driven by dance music, it's driven by beats. And I think that is because there's a lot of people interfacing with a computer, a lot of software engineers. And, if you're working with a code editor, switching into Ableton or switching into Reason or switching into any other digital interface doesn't feel too far. So the musical output has been accelerated by this digital transformation and the home studio and Pro Tools is this electronic style of music. And that has been, popular in this genre. The rise of EDM, and obviously culturally the rise of hip hop and rap, as against the decline of the traditional white rock Western music. But for me, the pendulum always fucking swings over time. And I think that it's really hard to bring in cultural references unless you are a musician. And one of the things, again, going back to the track, going back to Prepararome, what caught my ear was this feels Brazilian, but it feels accessible and modern, and it feels like different. And I haven't heard that before, and I'm looking for new. You know, there's a saturation at the moment. Hip hop hasn't changed, rap hasn't changed, Dirty South, East Coast, West Coast, EDM hasn't changed. You're going to hear the same thing. Whereas when I heard your track, that was like, I haven't heard this, and it feels more accessible. And I think and believe that while the musician and the thousands of hours you've put into your instrument to be able to create this thing, which has been sidelined a little bit, is maybe going to be welcomed back in because you're bringing sounds and tones and references that the homegrown musicians of the last 20 years interfacing digitally just don't have reference to and can't reproduce. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I mean, if you just think about it, right? You're looking this room here. right? The whole song that you heard was made here, nothing else. It was this room. I didn't go anywhere else. It was everything done here. So who would imagine that 30 years ago? Right? Before what? Three microphones, instruments, and that's it. What I think is like this. I think the music, the access of music to the people, every now and then, I think you have probably seen that as well. Like very often, I say, "No, I'm a singer, and I like to sing, and etc." And people they sing, and then someone sees in their part, "Oh, she sings well, he sings well, and etc." And sometimes I'm gonna call laziness, but it's not really what I mean, right? I think people get in their comfort zone because I'm singing well, so I want to record. And what's the easiest way to do that? I cannot afford a band or anything like that. I cannot afford someone to make the arrangements. So I just get ready stuff that I can just sing along. And there is audience for that because people, if they're working like crazy, and I mean, there are studies on that that says like if flamenco was in the early 20th century, the quality of flamenco was very poor because people in Spain were working too much and they want easy listening. They want easy entertainment. They don't want to put an effort on that. If you create a too complicated track or things like that, classical music and etc., you need to put your heart like it is tough. Imagine you work the whole day and then you go in the evening to listening difficult and complex stuff. Like, I mean, where your brain goes, you want some relaxation, right? I'm not by no means minimizing anybody's art, right? I'm just putting a scene on that. So what I feel is like this. What I feel that what at least what I try to do, being a bit old school or quite old school on that, by recording, for example, even the instruments that record, they are leather, they are not like nylon, which is a completely different type of animal, right? Classical guitar being played like that and all these grooves, like how many hours you need to study to play, and people they don't want you to invest the time on that. And what I think is like this: once you, and again, you get lots of investment in other stuff when you do electronic music and you do sampling and you do AI and all these kind of things. What I believe that probably this song and the other stuff that I'm doing brings to the world is like this. Yeah, there's electronic world, and then the blockchain music, and everybody's going all software related, producing stuff. But suddenly there's a spot of organic sounds that correlate with African rhythms from the past and with very regional bass lines that music that were considered, this is very simple, nobody cares about that. And suddenly we create a huge environment around that, and wow, that's what is this? Because I'm all used to listen EDM, for example, right?
How are you feeling about your ability to make a living as a professional musician in the next 10 years?
Yeah, it's a very hard question, right? I mean, I think the pandemic gave me lots of tools, right? It was a disaster to the world. We all know that, but gave me also open new doors. And before the pandemic, I never studied music business or anything like that. I was just a musician, right? Just a musician. So after the pandemic, I decided to get and take it serious, right? And build something around that and understand how this business works and all this kind of thing. So can I make a living as a musician in the next 10 years? I don't think as a musician, but I think as a producer, and I think within the music business, I think I can. And
Why?
and that's what I'm trying to figure out exactly which path I'm looking for now, right? I think that's something that I'm just turned 50, right? And I think that's a kind of mid-age questioning that I do say, oh, well, I love playing live. I'm gonna continue doing that. I'm gonna do this and this and that. I want to do stuff that I love. I think if I would be playing stuff that I don't love, I'll be making much more money, including producing, right? But I somehow I'm loyal to what I love to do and what I put my heart on it. But I believe that I can do that in music. I still don't know how, but I'm confident.
why not as a musician? Why do you not think, I mean, if you're producing this kind of music, it caught my ear, it can catch other people's ear.
Yeah,
Um, why could you not make a living as a musician putting out this amazing music that you put out?
yeah. I think we're saying the same thing. When I say musician, I probably limit myself to play an instrument, right? So I think about the whole music business, and I think about the production process, right? Um, Today in a home studio, you need to be you compose. Then after you compose, you make an arrangement, and for you to reach these both steps, you need to be playing well an instrument, so you need to be an instrumentist, right? And then after you do that, you need to be able to record. So you need to be a sound engineer as well, so you can record. After you record everything, you need to know how to do mixing, which is another step of sound engineering. Once the mixing is done, I'm simplifying the editing and blah blah and etc. Right? Afterwards, you need to do the mastering, which is another science, and doing all the package. And then, okay, finally, I got my song ready. So I'm a musician, I'm a composer, I'm a producer, and I'm a recording engineer. Fantastic. Now I need to release my song. So I need to know marketing. I need to know how to publish a song. I need to know about law. I need to know the rules and the copyrights and all these kind of things. And I need to get my music heard out there. So when I when I when I don't put myself just as a musician, I think the whole aspect of it. And I believe that yes, I can do a living thinking about the whole thing.
So, because before we move off the music, I think that the your unique background is what gives you an advantage. I think the blending of Brazilian trad with modern vibe and feel and production values and the collaboration, that I think is where the next round is going to come from. And it's not that it hasn't happened before, but I feel that music is practically infinite. Yeah, the challenge for a musician or a band is it's not distribution, it's just audience, it's ears. How do you find your audience when there's an ocean of music out there? And if you're in the EDM world or you're a rapper, you're in hip hop, the only thing that you've got that's different is the words that you're saying. If you're in that singer-songwriter, if you're actually writing songs, that's the only point of difference. Because sonically and structurally, there's very little difference between what's going on in these genres. Whereas if you can blend culture, if you can operate cross genre, blending cultures, that's a unique thing that the vast majority of people don't have.
Mm.
And you know difference of people are looking for different. I'm looking for new. I'm looking for something I haven't heard before, but it hasn't. But it's got to be kind of accessible. It can't be too far away because
Yeah.
then I can't connect with it. So I'm incredibly hopeful for the musicians because I think what we have to bring is the ability to bring in different cultural experiences into the playing field that our computer-based colleagues don't have. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it just made me wonder here. I think unconsciously, probably what I have been doing is like this. I have trying to build my skills within the environment that I understand better, within the Brazilian music, the instruments, and all these kind of things. And on purpose, knowing or not, I limited myself too much in a certain environment. And I think what you're bringing up is a very important element, which means that probably now it's time for me to grow up, get out of my comfort zone, with sambas, choros, bossa nova, and etc., right? And do other stuff that are not Brazilian and produce things that are completely different. With organic, with electronic, it doesn't matter, but do different stuff.
Yeah, but it's Picasso's phrase, isn't it? Learn the rules so you know how to break them. I mean,
Yeah,
you go around his, the museums in Barcelona or Paris, and you see his early stuff, and he was a fucking amazing painter. But then, what he broke through was the ability to change that. What I see you have is that you have this skill set that I'm not hearing anywhere else, so we can blend it. I mean, the reason you and I are here is the collaborative aspect of music too. That's why we get here, because it's that collaboration, it's that connection, it's that the belief that I've always had is that our output is greater than the sum of our individual parts. I've just believed that forever. You and I together can create something that is greater than, what you and I can create individually added together. So there's something magical, it's spiritual. It's just insane when two humans get into a space. And so I mean, it opens it. I'd love to collaborate with you. I'd love to, either get you to give me a guitar part. I mean, we agree on a tempo or a kind of feel, and then let me bring whatever piano I hear off your guitar part, give you a piano track, and let you interpret that in a way. And what will exist is something that no computer interface programmer or producer is ever going to create. And if it's resonant, then there will be an audience of that because it's fucking cool and not replicable because it comes from cultural separation and muscle memory and investment in time. That to me is like, let's have that shit.
yeah, yeah. You know what you're saying. You know Yo-Yo Ma, right? The cello player.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
the silk ensemble, right? I mean, what you're just saying, like the guy, he grew up in the classical music, and then he was missing something, and that's how he created the world music, the beautiful world music that he created. That I mean, I cannot not cry when I listen to what he does,
Yeah.
right? And but I thank you, Andrew, for that because I think that was exactly what I needed to listen to. Probably take it to the next level, right? And I mean, the good thing is like this: we're gonna do something together very soon. Yeah.
This, it's the connection. Um, that's a conversation for a different time, but shifting it back. So just I want to go back to the recording of it.
Yep.
So you meet through COVID, you meet the head of the capoeira in Munich, and you become friends. And she introduces you to the Edson show track, and then we got to record it, and then you create the soundscape in your head, and you have an idea of how you want to do it. Um, so how did you move from the idea of doing this to how did you actually make it happen? How many musicians are in there?
So we are in three musicians basically, right? So Jana is the one that introduced me to the track, and I have my brother, my blood brother by blood here, like João is not really my brother, but we are so well connected, particularly because of music. So I have a duo with him. He's the one who plays tambourine. So the tambourine that João plays, um, there's a saying in Portuguese that the tambourine, when it's well played, can replace the whole drum set, because the guy can do. And João is this type of guy, right? So most of my recordings, he's present, and he comes and he adds, and we exchange quite a lot, and etc. So he's also part of all of that. So when we decided to do the song, we start playing together. So, okay, we are going to record it. And then Jana has been, Abdallah, we need to record that song. Soon someone else is going to record. And then you're not the first ones releasing that song, and we need to do it. But the song was not ready in my mind. I said, well, what we do then, let's play it live. So every time that I was doing a concert with João, like the Caiana Duo, which is very hardcore Brazilian jazz stuff, and Jana came around, she was playing together with us one song, and she was playing that song. And in that short presentations that we did quite a lot here in Munich, that kind of the whole arrangement started being formed in my mind, how that song would look like. So then what we did is like this. So we recorded. So we are only three musicians. So usually the way that I do is like I recorded the guide track, right? So I did the guide track. So Jana came over. We thought about, yeah, okay, that would be like that. Okay, that sounds like plan A, right? And then okay, now I want to start the instrumentation of that. So I need to put the chords and all this kind of thing. So then I start thinking, okay, what kind of that's how I think what kind of grooves in the guitar I'm gonna add into that. So I brought first João in to record a tambourine. So he recorded 4 or 5 different grooves in the tambourine. So I could play and leave it playing, so I could play the guitar and understand how that would look like. Once I matched both of them, then I brought Jana in with the conga, and then she was playing the conga. So she was doing the whole conga there. So with that, I married the tambourine and the conga, and then I could do the guitar. So it's lots of back and forward process. And then lots of walking around with headphones in the street, thinking and coming back and saying, no, that goes like this goes like that. I want like that. No, I want okay. The starting, I cannot start with all these drums. I want to start only with clapping, and then make transitions and all these kind of things. So then we start recording, and then I put the guitar, and I want to do a different type of grooves in the guitar, things that are probably quite complicated at the end, like because the guitar goes like it's like a kind of very curvy road in the middle of all the other instruments. And I like to position that in one place. So I usually I visualize where the instruments are when I'm doing the mixing. And when I'm recording, I'm already thinking, I want the guitar here. So usually when I'm playing this side, João is here and Jana is here. So I want that set up. The conga needs to be on my left. Pandeiro or tambourine needs to be on my right. That's how I think. So I visualize all of that, and then I start doing this. So we recorded a song, and then it was all and I said, okay, you know what? I'm missing something at the end. Okay, all the guitars are there, but I'm missing something at the end. I need to add another instrument. So then I took the viola caipira, which is a Brazilian instrument. It's a 10 strings guitar, like the 12 strings guitar, but it's a 10 strings guitar in a completely crazy tuning. So when you play the viola caipira, it's like a D major, right? And then so you need to play in a different way that one because it's crazy, right? And once you tune it in D, your mind goes in D and then goes like completely crazy, right? So but it sounds so regional, sounds so country. And then I said, I want to put that in, and then it completes the harmony. Then I was happy with it. But at the end, it was missing something that I was going crazy. I said, I mean, the music is ending. I know how the end should look like. I want a chord in voices, so it's a dominant chord that she's singing. Perfect, beautiful there. But I'm missing something to bridge the song towards this final voice chord, like more like the take six, this take six group, like only vocals. And then I didn't know what to do. And then okay. If I don't know how to do, we go back and we play live. Let's play more. So and then João was having a gig in a bar. So yeah, Abdallah, come over. So I was just going there and jamming a little bit with them. And then Jana popped up. Let's do that. The Preparorem. Let's sing it live because I'm missing something. And then when we start playing that, by the end, João start doing some vocals. And I got crazy with that vocals. I was like, I didn't give a shit about the audience. I said, I want that in the recording. That's it. I almost stopped playing the song. I want this fucking part. That's it, man. That's it. I want to kiss you now. And the audience was there. There's a crazy guy with the guitar and just going like mad. So, yeah. But I'm like, if I'm like that. I stop everything and say, that's it. And then I said, Yeah, but what I'm doing in the northeast of Brazil, there are lots of cows, and there's some type of singing related to these cows. And I didn't know about that. I heard about it, but I didn't know what is exactly all of that. So then the next day he sent me some albums. I was listening the whole fucking day, this shouting with the cows and all this to understand, okay, where I want to go. Okay, now I know. João, come over. No, but I don't know how to sing that. No, you're gonna learn that. Don't worry about that. So put the microphone, put the repeat tracking, and then he sung, I think, 15 times. But the last one, then he started getting the groove. And then, of course, I did the cutting and editing there. And then, then in my mind, that was complete. Then, okay, now I have the vocals, trying to work quite a lot with the vocals in thirds, in fifths, and etc. So it makes not very loud, but try to balance a little bit to make it nicer. But that's how the song was recorded, right? So it was very intuitive and some arrangements in the middle and that's it.
I mean, it just sounds super real. It sounds so good.
Yeah.
So just one question. You didn't
Yeah.
want to put berimbau in there?
Sorry, say again?
You didn't want to put a berimbau in there? A berimbau?
Yeah, so yeah, we thought about putting berimbau on that. So originally there was no berimbau, and we thought about it. But then I think the instruments were enough in the end, and I like the result, right? Because we added this agogo, so I have many songs with berimbau, but this one, then let's not do it, right? And then because it was so fulfilled, and then okay, forget the berimbau.
But you chose a berimbau for the cover, for the cover art.
Yeah, the cover art is actually a picture that we took in a bar, right? So it was three of us, the Caiana duo, so it's me and João plus Jana. So actually, I don't think there's a berimbau there in the cover.
I'm just looking at
Preparo arame, vai com a madeira de Jequitibá.
yeah, it comes up as
because it's a shaded picture, right? That I put it there.
yes. But I'm looking.
Just look at it here on the phone, the photo.
Yes, I can't see the actual thumbnail on the
Vou preparo arame.
Oh yeah, okay.
Probably in the bottom, the knee of João can look like a berimbau. I didn't notice that. That's actually true. Like looks like.
Yeah, but when I look at it on Spotify from the playlist, it's
The playlist, yeah, because you're very right. The Canva of Spotify, that I made a berimbau because it is Preparo Arame, right? And the song is talking about berimbau. So I made a video to put it there to kind of honor the berimbau.
So okay, this is brilliant. This is really good. So marketing, what are you going to do for marketing? I mean, let's start with basics. In the traditional world, who's your distributor? Who do you use?
So I use Amuse, right? Amuse is my distributor. It's a Swedish company that I have been pretty pleased with them. So they have been usually when you have a problem, that's when you know if someone is good or not. And the issues that I had, like, not because of them, they were very helpful and they're very, very nice. So I have pretty much all my songs released by Amuse. So they have an interesting model like that. They are looking for artists to record and do like kind of big contracts and etc. I'm just a small artist, so I'm not counting on that, but I benefit from the service that they provide. So they release in all platforms, and usually the way that we did the marketing around that. So Jana had a capoeira event 1 week before. I tried to release the song the next day, but there was not enough time, so I couldn't do that. But we played the song there, and during the live concert, I invited everybody already to follow and to listen and all these kind of things. So that was a kind of marketing strategy that we use. So we do lots of social media especially on the first day and for people to listen all these kind of things. And then I start pitching to certain playlists and etc. But I must say I could do a far much better job on this. Like that's the part that start begging people to listen to that song and all these kind of things. So this is the first thing. One day, if I could outsource what I do, marketing would be the number one.
Just on the Amuse, because the how much metadata is Amuse asking you for? I mean, when you're loading this track up,
Yeah.
what kind of genres, what kind of, yeah, what's the intake from Amuse like?
Yeah, so in terms of the metadata, right? That's what you mean. Yeah, so what I add there is like this. Usually, these type of songs are very hard to find out. So it's like, how do I classify that song? Like, there's a acronym that's MPB. That's, if I would translate, it's Brazilian popular music, or in Portuguese, música popular brasileira, right? But this genre is not available. Capoeira is not available. Folk Brazilian music, not available. So what I do is like this. Usually I release as either Latin, right? Because Latin has more the Spanish speaking Latin America. So not the Portuguese speaking, which is Brazil. So I think this one was released as world music.
Right. And that's so lame, isn't it? It's so lame compared to what this it's something we should look at because there is a I can't remember his name. Glenn McDonald. He used to work for Spotify and
Okay.
he was a data architect for them. And he created this website where Spotify are using something like 6,200, 6,300 microgenres for class.
Okay.
And we should, once we're off this call, definitely go and look at that site. Because what we can do you have artists that are already published and established that you sound like, that this track sounds like?
Yeah, there's some of them, right? Some of them. Usually, like, and that's just like, I think from the artists within the digital world, let's take the very famous guitar players, for example, Yamandu Costa, that probably you know. There are a few others, but I'm around 5,000 listeners per month, right? So I'm pretty small. I mean, I think I have a decent number, but building from scratch and without any, just being by myself, right? I think it was an achievement.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, it's always difficult to find similar artists to that. So Spotify does that via their algorithm. Not always that I agree or not. So one of the things that yesterday when we talked, and I created a playlist around Preparo Arame, I asked also Jean and João about the songs, and we came with very similar songs. So, for example, the playlist that was created within Musicto for Preparo Arame, these are the other artists that could be look like to this song. And that's probably one of, I don't think it's a mistake, but that's probably one issue that I have. Like, I release two different type of songs.
That's challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
But the metadata, I mean, I was, interviewed on another podcast recently, and while I'm a hippie and I'm not happy with the decimation of the middle class musician, I do recognize that Spotify wants us to win. And what I mean by that is they really want to give good new music to people who are going to like it. And the only way they can do that, yes, they can do some sonic analysis, but the best way is for metadata with microgenre. And what I know is that yes, if we can take all of those other artists and songs and we can put this in this tool, and I can't remember what the hell it's called, but we can find what those microgenres are that already exist within Spotify's algorithm. That gives your track way more chance to
No,
actually.
absolutely. I'm a fan of metadata, right? And I didn't find a way to go, and I'm absolutely with you on Spotify, right? I'm quite critic to musicians that complain about that Spotify pays little and etc. I have a very strong opinion on that because I completely disagree to that. I think, and I'm gonna take the blame. I think musicians are lazy to read contracts, right? And if they don't read contracts, they cannot complain afterwards that are getting less money from Spotify. I own all the masters of my songs. Nobody taught me that. I read by myself how to do it. I get 100% of the rights of my songs. And the way that I operate here, like I have my own way to collaborate. Like for me, in a recording studio, even though I'm the one who I do arrangements, I do mixing, mastering, like the production is mine, but I split the royalties equally to everyone. So, for example, this one is 33% for everyone, and that's it because the participation of Jana, with all the story that I just said, the participation of João, they're key. How do I measure who is better, who is not better? For me, I'm very socialist in that sense, right? You sit here, we're going to record together, it's equal for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're just making bing, because that bing probably makes the whole difference in a song. But anyway, I went through a different avenue on answering.
I get that. I get that completely. I think that I think there's another human being. It's like if I looked at the three of you, I think there's four of you. I think there's, the three musicians, and then there's the producer, and you're the producer, because
Yeah.
I would have no problem saying, look, it's a 25% split, but I'm also the one who's sitting in here doing all the mixing, doing the mastering,
Yeah.
doing the distribution, whatever. I think that's fair, but I also appreciate.
No, but that's like something people told me, including the ones that worked with me. Everybody told me to do that, right? And probably something I agree with you. Like usually, like there's four, right? At the end of the day on that. But coming back to what you said, Spotify, like Spotify gives me a tool where I can pitch my song. Sorry, Andrew, just was an incoming call here that's ringing on my phone. So let me just decline here. Apologies for that.
Ooh.
So there was you can pitch your song to an editorial playlist, right? This song didn't come to an editorial playlist, but I had songs of mine. I have one song that is live there, right? And I had songs in editorial playlist being an unknown artist.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It is democratic, right?
It is democratic, and yes, there is the pay to play right at the top end with label contacts, taking out playlist, like editors and Spotify for $500. That's never going to go away. But Spotify wants you to win. If you're good, then it wants to bring your good music to the audience. It just does. So, and how we can help them as artists and musicians is to get better metadata. And I think that's one of the things that, there's that classic, analogy in that Tokyo, there's a record store in Tokyo that only sells 70s vinyl. That wouldn't exist in any other city on the planet. It only exists in Tokyo because there's 40, 50 million people within a half an hour, trip to that store. So because there's so many people, niche can survive. And Spotify has hundreds of millions of people. So I would bet my left leg, there are enough humans who would love that track that are on the Spotify platform. If only we could help Spotify get the track in front of them.
Yeah.
And that's so yeah, I'm maybe not pro some of the behaviors that Spotify do, but in terms of a distribution platform for music to find an audience, hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and not only Spotify, right? If you get the other service, for example, Apple Music and etc. If I could rightly put like the advantage of Spotify that I have much more access to data, right? I personally I use Apple Music. I like the service, but as a musician, I'm much more limited there. I can see my statistics, but I don't have tools to like and the other services are even worse, like Deezer, Amazon Music, and etc. I mean, it's good to have so many options, but for the musician, how you create a democratic environment that I can also be part. I mean, one of the things that we have been discussing is about the blockchain music, right? And I've been to, audios, right?
Yes.
So I have been into audios already a long time. I never used audio so much. And I'm starting because we started discussing about blockchain and etc. So let me play back to audios and uploading all this stuff there, keeping my profile, and it starts generating. But I need to work much more on the metadata, and I'm not doing that. And that's something that absolutely I need to do my homework better.
So marketing, you use Amuse, it goes out in the world. Obviously, it caught my ear and we're in this conversation. But what else can you do as an independent musician to
Yeah, so I have played quite a lot with social media, with Instagram and Facebook, right? So I have done paid advertisement for playlists and all this kind of thing. So I have one playlist of mine with lots of followers. Doesn't mean that they listen, but yeah, I have a good coverage there. I think like usually whenever I release a song, my initial channel of communication, it is Instagram. I'm pretty disciplined in sending an email to everyone and all this kind of things, like whenever I'm releasing songs. Uh, Pay advertisement, it is very good, but it is very expensive as well. So the like, I mean, you put lots of money and the return of investment is not there. It works, but it is expensive, in my opinion, right?
when you say it works, how do you measure what does that mean?
So if I'm running, for example, well, because of my other job, I do have a marketing expertise in terms of KPIs and all these kind of things, right? So, and I set up stuff in a way that if I select the right audience that I want my advertisement to goes in, I have my micro website linked to that, so I can see how many people are clicking into that and how many people are clicking to the song and afterwards listening. So the magic here, what I'm saying is like I'm combining social media visibility into how many listeners I have, by the way, in Spotify, right?
What is
So
your
that
core metric? Is it monthly listeners or is it plays of that song? What do you look
plays
at?
of that song. So usually it's plays like because I have done two. I have done with playlists, right? So how many followers I have in the playlist, and I'm monitoring my playlist, how many listeners I have there, right? So Spotify gives me all this data, which is pretty interesting on that, and that helps me a lot, right, to understand. One thing that Spotify is doing now is like this: I can do direct advertisement into Spotify. So I have done with a song of mine just to check it out. I put $100 just to see. It's nice because you see a peak of streams,
Yep.
and then it goes down, but
Yep.
it doesn't go so badly down. But I also think it's quite expensive. Like you pay €100, for example, to boost your song. I think that's the minimum budget. And then you get a little bit more visibility, but it goes down. So you need to maintain that a little bit. So all in all, what I'm telling you is like this: all these marketing tools, uh, I don't like being too pushy into my social media. Say, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Right? I do it the first day, but then afterwards I don't do it because you want to listen to different stuff. I'm not listening myself every day. Actually, I don't listen myself. I want to listen to other stuff, right? So, so, so marketing is something that I absolutely and you talking about metadata is something that to be further explored. And also, I think blockchain and NFTs and all these kind of things is something that I started. I didn't push myself too much to that, but probably I need to find the spots because there's how much 70,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify every day.
40, 50, 60. Yeah, it's an insane amount. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you find a place under the sun there, right? So it's very hard. And if you cannot be found, as you said, makes it just more harder, right?
Right. Well, just a quick sidebar. I have your track Sissy. It's the number 4 track on my Focus Mate playlist.
I saw that.
Yeah, right. And I listen to that because I use that playlist it's like a ritual for me.
Yeah.
And I use it to focus into a study session. So I've probably listened to that track like hundreds of times.
Probably gonna like these two Mons, this one that I released in August. So I don't know if you heard that one. It's more or less same style.
I shall go check it out. Let's spend a few minutes on Chain because
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I've got a track on Audius that I recorded at 432 hertz just for shits and giggles because it's always kind of fun to play down
Yeah.
there. But So you and I have talked briefly about this, but what do you know about on-chain music at the moment? I mean, as a musician, hustling and getting out there, is that even on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an early adopter and I like to explore things, right? So I think what I see like with blockchain and decentralized methodologies, like to bring the artist closer to the audience and get less intermediate in trying to get some rights in the whole process, right? I think there are several initiatives, but I think the technology is too advanced for the mass population. I mean, how do you beat Spotify with audios? I
Yeah.
mean, it's much easier for me to release. I mean, and I think SoundCloud tried to do that as well. So they are, of course, not in the decentralized methodology. So what I saw it in terms of blockchain was two things. I think the first one is platforms like Audios, where I can upload my song, collaborate with people, be found. I was found by one guy there that he liked my song and etc. But not big volumes. That was number one. The number two is the NFTs, which I love the concept, but I think that NFTs would work better for visual arts than for music. Probably I'm just ignorant about the topic, but I think people would be more willing to pay for an art than for music, to own a music, right? That's my just probably stupid opinion about it.
No, I literally just wrote a blog post going,
Yeah,
I'm not ignorant, I'm uninformed, because there's a
yeah,
negative association to ignorance, and I don't think it's that. I agree the interface is too opaque and too obscure, and there's too many steps. But the underlying construct of the economic, um, what should be the economic relationship between the artist and the listener. And right now, there is no direct economic relationship between the artist and the listener. A listener either pays Spotify or Apple Music with their time and they receive ads and they listen, or they pay their, $10 a month and then the artist receives, a negligible amount of it. So that's obviously different from how you and I grew up. We grew up
yeah,
buying records and buying, whatever. So what is you can't put the genie back in the bottle, yeah, but there is a cultural acceptance that music should be, almost free. I mean, that happened in, 2001 and we ain't going back. But I think it goes back to a point that we were talking about earlier. um I mean, music back in the day evolved through patronage. I mean, it just did. I mean, music is that weird thing. It's not fucking, it's not sleeping, it's not eating. It's
yeah,
this thing that you don't need to live. But I think, as you say yourself, life without music would be a mistake. I mean, that's Nietzsche, isn't it? I think.
yeah, yeah.
So, so it's there, but somebody has to pay for the food and the shelter of the musician to create this thing that we all want. I think we're out of whack. So that that model, I think, is evolving. And what I think on-chain does is it facilitates or it creates the opportunity for you as the fan or the listener to say, I want to support you. I think there's value to your music. And unlike the early NFT days where, you would mint a song for fuck knows like 2 ETH and it went up to whatever and people are making fortunes. I think as gas costs come down and the technology gets more efficient, for me to spend 25 cents on a track of yours, that doesn't feel too bad. That feels, and it's not, I can get it on Spotify, I can get it Apple Music, but it's in my wallet. And I know that that I've supported you directly. That's never happened. If you go
Yeah.
back to when we grow up, the artists didn't know who bought their stuff, didn't know who downloaded their stuff, none of that. Whereas if I buy your track, if I mint your track, then depending on the programmable nature of the NFT or the label, you know all the wallets that have
Yeah.
made your track. That to me, that's fucking exciting.
Yeah.
That's why I'm massively bullish on getting artists on chain, even if it's tiny, because going back to one point you said, there's not volume. Well, who the fuck cares about volume? I mean, that has been the economic model for 40 years, which is we got to sell a lot of shit because the shit was physical and it costs. So we had the efficiencies and scale. Well, that disappeared in 2000 when distribution and production went to, well, manufacturing and distribution went to zero.
Yeah.
So why are we still about volume when if we could just find the 10,000 people on the entire planet who love your music and are happy to give you 30 cents, well, that's fucking life changing for you, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. No, you're very right on that. One of the findings that I got, Andrew, was like that. When I started all this journey since the pandemic of music business, one thing that I learned is like that. There are tons of people trying to take money out of the musician in one way or another, right? So everybody looks to the musician with this music business environment. The target audience to make money upon is on the musician. And I don't think that that's fair because the one who is receiving the goods is the audience. So why you are focusing all the stuff that people are doing, like playlisting, pitching, I mean, all the service that you find, like everything is focused on musician. Like we just talked about even mixing softwares and all these kind of things. Everything is expensive to the musician. What about the audience? Why the audience like should get everything for free? So I agree with you. We're gonna not put the gene in a bottle again, but there are different ways of monetizing that. I think you just mentioned one. I think Patreon was doing a good job on this kind of things. I think the great advantage of on-chain is because this space is not so crowded yet, so the early adopters can jump in and try to explore, right? I think that's, and also I think we can also be exposed for different things, right? So if you are there and there's someone, a movie maker that likes your song and they want to use your song for something else, why do I need to pay for gazillions of other services to get my song into Netflix? Probably a song of mine fits, probably doesn't, but if it fits, I mean, I have so many intermediate steps to reach that person that's producing the movie, while when I'm on chain, it's probably solved.
I'm incredibly optimistic about on-chain for the distribution of art and the development of new economic models. I mean, there's the subscription model. There's I'm listening to a lot of podcasts and you're learning about it, but hey, why not? I mean, there's basically Patreon online. If you want to support this artist, I mean, that model is proven, it exists. Yeah, but there's still so many middlemen and percentages being taken out. So yeah, all of this is there. What the on-chain world needs is more humans, more musicians, more artists, more people coming on. And I'm turning into an evangelist for it because I feel it's early. My signal to noise ratio in the music channel on Warpcast is now fucking fantastic. I'm making I'm a piano list with Wilmore down in Bulawayo, and I don't know too much piano. Yeah, so I go to the music channel and say I'm making an piano list. Can you help me out? And there's like 4 or 5 different people saying, check this out, check this out, here's this. That wouldn't fucking happen on Twitter, couldn't happen on Instagram. I mean, it's like, and they're cool, and they're just normal, regular people who are working towards the thing. I think right now is a fabulous time to get in. Maybe we get to ride the wave this time.
Yeah, no, I'm fully with you, right? I mean, I joined the community. I'm pretty pleased to see, like, I'm trying to understand how to operate, like, with all this, the community that you mentioned to me. What was the name of that? It was
what counts on? Oh, the music community and the musicians.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like I cannot post anything in the channel because I need to be invited to the channel by the host. But I'm working already on that. But I'm fully with you on this, right? And I mean, this world of starting early, right? I saw that because 15 years ago, I recorded the basic standard rhythms in YouTube of the Brazilian choro, right? Nobody else did that. I went there and I recorded, and I got gazillions of views. But I did once and I didn't continue that. If I would continue, probably I would be like a YouTuber today. So I missed the chance completely. And I experienced that myself because that videos that I got there, they have thousands of views, like it's 200, 300,000 views, right? And I could continue because you don't build something YouTube only with one video. You need to be continuous on that. So absolutely. But this time with on-chain, I'm not going to do the same mistake, right? And that's something that I want to really play and let's see how far it goes.
I think there's huge opportunity for you to
Yeah.
do what you did on YouTube. Just fucking do it on chain. Do it through SoundX
Yeah.
Reveal. What is, dude? You and I have very similar experiences because I was on YouTube early with Music to Work To. I had a track, Frustration. I think it's got like 250,000 views, and it was growing 20, 30,000 views. I had other tracks that were growing. So my Music to Work To YouTube channel. This is back in 2008, I think. Um, and I signed a representation deal with an indie distributor. You know, they were the label, an indie label. Remember that first meme dance where everybody's like standing still and then they fucking like go into
Yeah. Yeah.
so they handled, you know, a lot of that. So they were pretty savvy. And I spoke to the owners a couple of times and I signed it. And then YouTube suspended my channel for 2 months. And it took me 2 months to get through. I think they said it was copyright strike or whatever. There were no copyright strikes. But in the time that my channel was offline, I went into a fucking deep depression, you know,
Yeah.
because I finally got to this point and they fucking deplatformed me. And I got the channel back, but then, you know, my headspace and momentum had changed and
Yeah.
so I followed through. So yeah, maybe I would have been a YouTuber, but you can't get deplatformed on chain.
Yeah.
So
Exactly, because it's decentralized, right? So it just like once you are all authenticated and you have everything correctly done, right? And you are who you are, and it's proven that you are who you are with all the tools that they provide you. That's it, right? And once it is in decentralized and blockchain, there's no way to erase the track record on that.
And just to finish on the on-chain, not to finish, but there aren't a lot of Abdallah Haratis that I'm seeing on-chain for the moment. I'm not seeing, you know, I'm seeing a lot of EDM. I'm seeing a lot of, you know, kind of producer DJ style music. I mean, because the players on-chain, that's what they like to listen to. That's the nights they go out. If they're going to like clubs, it's DJ driven. But everybody loves good music. And so there's the amount of music on there is so small compared to what's out in the world. If you start publishing, then you
Yeah.
know it's like there's an audience for it who haven't heard it. And the marketing, the social media bit is just be you. I mean, that's the cool thing. You join, I mean, I've spent 3 months on there and slowly getting to know people and not being a dick. And I'm actively contributing, I'm sharing, I'm commenting. I comment more and respond than I do post. And you start to build these relationships and it feels really good, man.
Yeah, today I want, and one of the things like that you can use audios into that is like when you want to push your song into one of these channels, you push via audios. I was reading what would be the best way, so then I just post the song there, like Preparo Arame in audios into the, and let's see what's going to happen there, right? So once I'm approved into these communities, I want you to do exactly the same, like comment more, participate more, and see how things goes.
It's super cool. All right. I mean, 2 hours, mate. Didn't even feel
Yeah.
it.
Amazing, huh? Amazing. Imagine if we'd be in a bar drinking beer.
One day, dude, one day.
One day, we're gonna get that sorted.
So to wrap up, um, So we're gonna have the playlist at the top of the page. We're
Yeah.
gonna have the song itself as a standalone song, so they can hear it in. We'll have the YouTube video of the Edson
Yeah.
Show original. So finally, if somebody's listening to this, how can they how can they find out more about you? Where would you want them to go? What would you want them to do if they've gone, fuck me?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks to you, by the way, for directing me to proper copywriters and all these kind of things. I have a proper bio and I have a proper. My page is a bit outdated, but the information is there, right? So, but abdallahharati.com, you get everything there. Get my mailing, get the songs that I have published and all this kind of thing. So everything is there.
Love it. Abdallah, thank you.